Welcome to No Longer Conformed. I am Erik Garthe, and we are studying the book of Philippians, Bondservants of Jesus Christ. In this session, we'll be looking at Philippians chapter 2, verses 12 to 18, the sacrificed life. Let's jump right in and consider three things about the sacrificed life as presented by our text for this session. Philippians chapter 2, verses 12 to 18. First, there is the need for obedience. Look at verse 12. Therefore, my beloved, as you have always obeyed, not as in my presence only, but now much more in my absence, work out your own salvation with fear and trembling. For it is God who works in you both to will and to do for his good pleasure. An attitude of obedience is needed to live as Christians. Work out your own salvation. Paul is urging believers to be diligent in the Christian life. The call to obedience, verse 12, as you have always obeyed. Not as in my presence only, but now much more in my absence. Now indicates something happened. It's a commitment, not watched. There is motivation of obedience with fear and trembling. The Greek words translated fear and trembling here literally mean fear and trembling. The kind of reverence for God is missing today. So there's a motivation of obedience. There is a power for obedience, for obedience in verse 13. For it is God who works in you. It is the grace of God that inclines our will to do that which is good, and then enables us to perform it. To will, to do. God is the worker. His grace assists our faithfulness. A divine initiative, conviction. A human response, obedience. And then the power to accomplish. Second is the reason for obedience. Verse 14. Do all things without complaining and disputing, that you may be blameless and harmless, children of God, without fault, in the midst of a crooked and perverse generation, among whom you shine as lights in the world, holding fast the word of life, so that I may rejoice in the day of Christ, that I have not run in vain, nor labored in vain. Do all things without complaining or disputing. Why? Because we live in a sin-corrupted world. There are two concerns we need to consider. One, first is we profess to be Christians, and that invites scrutiny. Second, we plan to be witnesses, and that requires integrity. Avoid giving the world reason to find hypocrisy with us. Your actions speak so loud, I can't hear your words, is the old saying. Complaining is our personal expressions or debate of our displeasure. Disputing is pressing our opinion to the point of separation. The problem is the world is watching us very closely. Christianity and the world are contrasts. To minister effectively, the distinction must be evident to the unbeliever. It's being pure and blameless versus being distorted and depraved. It's shining as light versus being mixed with the darkness. How is this accomplished? Well, verse 16, holding fast the word of life. It is applying good moral character. It's by cheerful obedience to God's commands. They were given to be obeyed, not to be disputed. It's by peaceful love of each other. Life and light are usually lost in disputes. It's by blameless conduct toward others. not even an opportunity for suspicion. Grumbling and arguing displeased God. 1 Corinthians chapter 10, verse 6. Now these things became our examples, to the intent that we should not lust after evil things, as they also lusted. And do not become idolaters, as some of them. As it is written, the people sat down to eat and drink and rose up to play. Nor let us commit sexual immorality, as some of them did, and in one day 23,000 fell. Nor let us tempt Christ, as some of them also tempted and were destroyed by serpents. Nor complain, as some of them also complained and were destroyed by the destroyer. Now all these things happened to them as examples, and they were written for our admonition, upon whom the ends of the ages have come. And then third is the goal of obedience. Verses 17 and 18. Yes, and if I am being poured out as a drink offering with you all, if I am being poured out as a drink offering on the sacrifice and service of your faith, I am glad and rejoice with you all. For the same reason, you also be glad and rejoice with me. What is the purpose of the church? Well, it's threefold. To exalt the Savior in worship, to edify the saint, to be equipped, to be built up, and to evangelize the sinner, to share the good news with the lost. What is Paul talking about in these verses? Poured out, sacrifice, service. It's a metaphor of the Jewish sacrifice. The drink offering accompanied the burnt offering. Actual sacrifice given as a dedication of worship, and priestly services performed to benefit others. It appears to point to the apostles' future martyrdom and a reflection of his life and its meaning. Why was Paul rejoicing? He rejoiced over their faith and spiritual growth. A drink offering was poured out upon the altar in connection with a burnt offering. Paul's death and the new life of the Philippians. He was willing to be sacrificed for the faith of the Philippians. Let me ask you, will you risk your life so that others may know Jesus Christ? Will you risk rejection so that others may grow in the Lord? Will you risk anything so that you may become mature? We're called to pursue a Christ-centered life. And I call you to pursue a Christ-centered life. You have a great day.